afternoon to all the participants from wherever you're joining in. We're going to have a really fantastic discussion here today. We are very privileged to have with us three really dynamic leaders who are all playing different roles as stakeholders in the Bharat ecosystem. So I'm going to introduce them one by one. Let me start with Mr. Anish Chaudhry. Mr. Anish Chaudhry is a veteran in technology, data and business transformation. He's currently the Chief Data Officer for Hindustan Unilever Limited. Everybody knows HUL. And he co-leads the digital transformation strategy for the business. He is really passionate about building data-driven enterprises and aspires to redefine how an FMCG company of the future will operate in an increasingly digital world. He's also an active angel investor who believes that real solutions for Bharat will come from the Bharat ecosystem. Welcome on board, Anish.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Sunil.
All right. Let me invite our next panelist, Mr. Himanshu Sharma. Mr. Himanshu Sharma is a huge people person. He spent 10 years as an entrepreneur, gaining experience in all areas of business, including marketing, operations, business strategy, business intelligence, and more. He's passionate about technology. He's on a journey to solve the language problem in India. As you guys know, India is about 1 billion Indian language internet users in the next 10 years, but only has about 0.1% content on the internet in regional languages. He wants to remove this language gap. He wants every Indian who doesn't know English, they still have the power to harness the power of the internet. So when he's not working, and he is essentially the founder of Devnagiri, when he's not working, he loves playing video games, watching cricket, and loves to cook. Welcome on board, Himanshu.
Hi guys. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to invite now our last panelist, last but not the least, I would like to call on Colonel Ravi Gupta. Colonel Ravi Gupta is the CEO of RuralShores, and he's an alumni of the NDA, the National Defense Academy. He served in the Indian Army for 23 years. During his service, he's been part of operations in Sri Lanka, the UN missions in Angola and Kargil. He's also a postgraduate from IIT Bombay. After commanding a specialist engineer regiment, he bit the corporate bullet back in 2006. He joined iMint, which was a startup in the loyalty domain, as the head for operations, which were then acquired by Payback Germany and subsequently by American Express. He's been part of the growth of customer base from 0 to 125 million, and is really well aware of what it takes to scale. After 13 years with Payback, he's now the CEO of RuralShores. It's a social impact company with the mission to create jobs in rural India, which they do by establishing BPO delivery centers in tier 4 and 5 cities and towns. Incidentally, he was also the first client for RuralShores, and he truly believes that it's his time to pay back. So welcome on board, Colonel Ravi Gupta.
Thank you.
All right. So, folks, I'm going to spend just a couple minutes in giving context to the audience about where this work stream and where our discussion today fits in to the broader scheme of things. So when we really think about Bharat, now we've been talking about the Bharat as a concept, and as NASSCOM, as industry, we've been working together to drive towards how can we as a community help accelerate this ecosystem. From last year's conference in June, we actually got to a point where we picked up about 8 streams, and we broke it down into different areas that we could then start focusing on as a community. Everything from providing capital to startups, helping generate access to state governments and local governments, to the ecosystem, creating a need for developing the empathy that is required for the Bharat user, creating a hub for all parties to communicate, which is, by the way, the focus of our discussion today, skill development across rural India, celebrating entrepreneurial success for the stakeholders in the system, working from small towns, and then finally mass entrepreneurship, which you guys had a session just earlier before this one. So as I said before, the focus for today is the Bharat Hub track. which really is a need to have better means for customers to connect with solution partners. So, when we had this discussion back in June as well, there were some things that emerged on this particular track as well. So while we have a lot of niche companies that have solutions to solve the V3M challenge, right, which is voice, vernacular, video, and messaging, there are a lot of startups like Devnagiri, who's present here today, Carex, Process9, etc. They're all creating solutions that can be applied across multiple industries. Companies like RuralShores are actually enablers to the overall ecosystem. They employ talent in rural India to help corporates reach the rural consumer. Large platform players like Jio, Amazon, Paytm, Samsung are all investing in the evolution of marketplaces to potentially tap into creating a super app, for their respective, organizations. Several players, VCs, VC arms of global companies, large companies themselves are investing in exploring solutions that can transform the Bharat space. There are so many examples which are just the tip of the iceberg. Unilever, who's present here today through Anish, they've created mass entrepreneurship for last mile insights and distribution across India to reach the Bharat consumer. In the agri space, there are companies and products out there that leverage GSM and drone technologies that are helping figure out what's the right crop and the crop history across a period of time, year on year, that can actually help farmers and companies that own large agricultural farms to get better and get better yields, from the land that they own. In the microfinance space, there's a whole bunch of companies like lending companies that are looking to understand payment patterns better by getting Bharat users, including the urban poor, into their platforms, and then they can leverage their advanced risk algorithms to open up a new segment for themselves. And that's, like I said, just the tip of the iceberg. Now, there's several of us that have been brainstorming about how to build a Bharat Hub community to accelerate this movement. And that's what we're going to focus on today's conversation. So today's panel, we'll interact with our esteemed panelists to delve into this ecosystem and maybe learn more about their experiences and get their thought processes around how can we really drive this and take it to a national scale. So I'm going to start, and maybe Anish, I'll start with you. So I'll just put the question out there, and then we can do a roundtable and have all of you, guys, given your experiences, right? So here's the question: how have you participated in the Bharat ecosystem, and what are your couple of takeaways, your experiences, finding, researching, collaborating with other parties in the ecosystem, and what might be use cases from your perspective that might be relevant into the Bharat Hub concept?
Yeah. I think that's a good place to start, Sunil. I think from us being a consumer goods company, we've been with over 80 years in the country serving the consumers in India. And we are fortunate to have 9 out of 10 households using one of our brands, be it a Wheel, be it a Dove, be it a Lakme, be it Surf. So that way, for us, the conversation of Bharat is very central to who we are and the business that we are in. And not surprisingly, for many years, we've been engaging both with the go-to-market, the if I may say, the retailers and the distributors, but also the consumers in many ways. So maybe I'll give a bit of a flavor, some tech, some non-tech, because we've done a bit of both. Our approach has been people-led, but tech-powered to get the scale that we want for the wonderful big country that we are here. And then I think if you look at the relationship between us, our brands, and the consumers, it's a couple of ways. So one, it's a little bit about information and market development, talking about new solutions for the consumer needs and how do you sell that, how do you explain that, how do you even help the consumers understand what is the need and how best to use the product. We call it market development. But then also in the traditional advertising cell, where we want to make sure our brands are visible and people know what our brand stands for. And we've been doing through a series of programs. Way back, 7-8 years back, we had our first, if I may use the Scale Tech initiative, what we used to call KKT. At a very simple lens, it was about consumers being invited to give a missed call. And those were the times when the calls were not very cheap and not free as it is today. And the system used to call back with entertainment. And that's 7-8 years back, and I was recollecting it. to more recently, where as we go and engage with consumers in their homes, in their communities, in the panchayat, how do we enable the promoter who is tech enabled to get the content or help the consumer engage with the content, even though the consumer may or may not have the device on their own? So I think that ecosystem has been around, but what changed for us was way back in 2013, where we took a conscious call with the insight that India isn't one India. And we came up with the strategy of winning in many Indias. And at that time in 2013, we kind of reorganized the geographies into what we call 14 consumer clusters. And they represented a certain consumer need, a certain socio-economic profile, a certain socio-cultural profile indeed. And just to give you a bit of an example, when you make tea, the north, so I'm sitting in the north now, and when I make tea, I put a lot more milk than it is in the south part of the country. Now, if I compare the north with the east, now east, while they use the same amount of milk, the fat content is different. Now, all that changes the experience that I as a consumer get. And I think those insights led us to 14 consumer clusters, organizing our communication, our product, our activation around those 14. And I think as we are getting into this next stage, we are recognizing that maybe there is even more de-averaging that is required. And as we are getting into that, there is no way to get there without tech space being core to the solution. And we would have had an opportunity to work with a few players in the ecosystem. With Colonel Ravi and his organization, RuralShores, we've done some collaboration. We've done some experimentation on guided app usage, voice-guided app usage, which isn't really about language, but how do I use the app if I'm not very proficient? And I think that's a big need I want to talk about later in the session. But we recognize that we need to get in tech. At the same time, we also recognize that this is not solutions which will come from big houses, a national solution. My hypothesis is that it's going to come through a portfolio of new emerging players, which may be focusing on a narrow niche. And it's up to me and the team and the organization to kind of create it together in the context of the consumer need.
That's great, Anish. I think the great insight I picked up there was, in Bharat is actually a bunch of mini Bharats, and how there is that hyper localization. And I think you were alluding to even, within there, once you get to that segment, then it breaks up even more. And just the ability to get information from a tech perspective, would be a very cool use case, for you guys as you go further on, to see how that might, help you guys with your strategies.
Yeah, Sunil, and if I can just add on, see, even within that mini Bharats, if you look at it, the rate of digitization adoption is different, and the nature of digitization is different. There are some very agri-focused mini Bharats.
Yeah.
There, the platforms of engagement are likely to come across the agri-tech, in which case that's the platform I would like to engage on, whereas in some other, it might be an entertainment one. And that kind of highlights the kind of opportunity and the challenge as we go deeper.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Anish. We'll circle back with you with with some more thoughts. Why don't we move over to Colonel Ravi Gupta?
Sure.
If you can give some of your insights on this topic.
Let me speak with an anecdote of our Bharat. When COVID happened, and we also had the fall of it, we lost a lot of jobs. Our mission is actually to create jobs. And and trust me, as we were losing jobs, we were getting jobs also in the farming sector. We had a company in the tractors and farm equipment. We had in moderation. I'll give you an example, the kind of a hunger which is there in the rural sector. So when we lost job, when we had to deploy people to work from home, the normal, tech use was you take their systems, take the UPS, take the dongle. But there were 3 people in their village, they could not get good connectivity. Sunil, what they did, they went 3 kilometers away, where there was a good connectivity. They hired a space for 2,000 rupees, started functioning from there, so that they could protect their job. Can you imagine? That's a hunger, and that we need to satisfy. With that as the preamble, today's Bharat has changed. Today's Bharat does not lack in talent. Trust me, they lack in opportunities. And that's what we need to create. And the adoption to the technology is very simple for them. Gone are the days for customer service or data entry. These are all getting automated. They're actually adopting to the AI and MLs, data annotation. They're actually getting used to that kind of a work. We do a lot of moderation. When TikTok went out, Raposo came, and we got job for them, and we are doing content moderation, about huge number of content moderation, and adaptation by these people is so beautiful. I can't even explain to you that. Now, coming to Rural Shores, we were founded in 2009 basically with the aim of creating or taking jobs to their neighborhood. Why? Because we realized that the BPO work in the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, 40 to 45% of the people working there were actually coming from the neighboring towns, which were tier 4 and tier 5 cities. And we said, why not take this work to their neighborhood? In doing so, you will not only arrest their migration, but also ensure that the earnings which they have goes to the family earning. They can support a family. And we are proud to say that we've been able to enable about 20 odd thousand such individuals, thereby multiply by 600 1,20,000 individuals we may have been able to impact by doing so. And 50% of these people come from farming background. Thereby, when a farmer is not working, his earnings are getting supplemented. I think that's very nice, which is happening. The USP which we get from going to the rural areas is basically the language, the vernacular language. A lot of domestic consumption is happening, and I think we are able to satisfy that. And like Anish mentioned, that in the recent past, our Bharat is not the old age Bharat. The infrastructure has improved tremendously. The connectivity has improved tremendously. And what we offer, Bharat can offer to the businesses, cost arbitrage, the language advantage, and very low attrition. So the knowledge retention is huge, which can actually be used by the business to have better kind of a productivity. My only humble thing here, which I can say, is that Bharat has become very aspirational. The purchasing power has also increased, and the industry is actually ready to go there. That's the current situation of Bharat today. And Bharat needs to reach out, for the demand as much as it needs to support by creating jobs in these areas. Then there will be a synergy. Not only you reach only for your personal gains, but also reach out to create those jobs. And I think we are in that sector, and we are very proud of it. And we are supporting some of the big names in the e-commerce sector, in the agriculture sector, in the insurance sector, and AI and ML work we are doing. Tremendous amount of work being done by the rural, India as such.
Colonel Ravi, I think what stands out for me when you describe your journey and your experiences at Rural Shores is that you actually touch upon so many of the elements that in the beginning I described. We broke up Bharat into 8 different tracks. You almost touched like 4 of those, right? There's skill development, job creation, work from small town. There is the Bharat Hub concept. So as a creating mass entrepreneurship, in a sense. So your solution actually is uniquely positioned from not only being a consumer of potential tech solutions that might enable your businesses, to service your clients better, but your solutions themselves can help your clients get into Bharat better because you have a workforce that is technologically skilled that and has the language, has the language knowledge from a local perspective that can become an enabler, for another client of yours. So I think you sit on, sort of both sides of the spectrum, in that sense. So I thought that was, that's really cool, with your business model.
Thank you.
All right, let's move over to Himanshu. Now, Himanshu, you're the tech guy. You've got the tech startup. What's your perspective?
Yeah, so today India has a digital ecosystem that includes close to billion people, and it's being created at a scale unparalleled anywhere else in the world. But here's the catch. we have less than 10% people of India understand English, but the language of internet is English. That means 99% data when we see on internet, it still exists in English. Whereas we have billion plus people who don't understand the language. This shows a huge gap in our digital language ecosystem, where we are in need to reach the last mile, last consumer of the internet in his or her language, so that they can harness the power of internet. Language is free, right? Internet is almost free, but now can they access internet in, they can harness the power of internet in their language? If they want to hear a Barack Obama in their language, can they do that? Can they learn from them? Right now, that is the barrier which Devnagiri is solving. So we are helping businesses to localize at scale. So Devnagiri have a combination of neural machine translation and machine learning with a community to power translations at scale. So our AI, we have combined a AI model with a human solution which is delivering enterprise business translation at scale. So that means the data which we have on internet in English, we can now convert into multiple languages in a scalable manner. So we thought, why not we should organize the way the translation industry works, as there are two things which we can do to overcome the language barrier, because we have a history of last 20-30 years of internet, and we are accumulating data that is in English, and then we can create new data for the new breed of people coming on the internet. So there are two solutions to it, which we thought that it would be better and quick approach to translation for the content into multiple languages, that so that we can fill this gap. So our hybrid approach brings AI and human together to enable faster and on-time and contextual translations. So we, as a tech company, saw that machine translation does not work at all till now. So we thought that why not we do something else where we can produce the data in a contextual manner and in a scalable way. So we understand the human intervention in the language and understand the importance of human touch. If I say watch can be dekhna, and watch can be ghadi, and watch can be many different things in
Right.
different languages.
Right.
So that human touch we need to understand the language, to understand the context of the content. So we came up with the idea to hybrid our approach and bring machine and man together. So we use the speed of the machine and efficiency of human. So we focusing on building a community of translators so that we can bring human element and context in our translation, but at a scalable manner. So our technology and community help us to translate millions of words in every day with 99% of accuracy. So we are creating a lot of job opportunities for bilinguals, even though it is not necessary to have a degree or something education level, because we are born with our language. And the good part is, in India, many people are bilingual people, so they understand either they understand Hindi or they understand Tamil, or either they understand Tamil or Telugu, or English or Hindi, or English or Gujarati. So this is what we have. Our people have that capacity to understand two languages. So we can use their skill of language and create a mass entrepreneurship out of that.
So Himanshu, when you're with your platform, how have you, what kind of industries, do you support, or what
Yeah,
industries, have you worked with?
yeah. So right now we are concentrating on the education industry and the publisher industry, where they produce lots of data, where we can plug in our APIs and translate it at scale, so that they have lots of users out for them, and they can reach to the end level and end users.
And when you think about it, actually, even what you described your platform, it's really a horizontal service from a language translation or transliteration standpoint. But there
Yeah.
really is no limit to any industry that this could really apply to, right? And that is, I just wanted to bring that out because there are a lot of startups like yourself that have unique solutions either in the voice, space, or in the language space from a vernacular standpoint, or in rich messaging, or as Anish talked about before, even in missed calls and communications, and so on, right? So there's a lot of companies out there that are providing solutions in the space. And as we sort of reflect back upon how do you bring a community together, a big part of that is actually bringing solutions that companies like yourselves bring to consumers, and companies like HUL and RuralShores plays on both sides. But there's many industries, many companies out there that could leverage a hub, and that really was sort of the it was the birth of this concept, from our standpoint, right? So as we sort of affirm that vision, we put out, as a subset of us at NASSCOM, as volunteers, we put out a vision statement for the Bharat Hub. So I'm just going to read that out, and then I'm going to ask you guys to reflect upon that, right? Bharat Hub is designed to help startups, corporates, everyone, anywhere globally and across domains to expand into Bharat by propagating Bharat-specific solutions. It could be APIs, plugins, SDKs, toolkits to integrate voice, vernacular, video, rich messaging, etc. It could even be iconographics, as well as experiences on what works and what does not. This hub will help connect those who want to expand to service Bharat opportunities with those who have the tools and experience to help. So fundamentally, what we're saying is the concept of the Bharat Hub, if we bring it to life, we want something that can actually scale across India. And so now I'm going to ask you guys to take a step back, think about that, and think from how would we do things at scale, and what if you had something like this at your disposal? How would it have helped you, or how it might help you? Maybe we can go back in reverse order. Maybe we start back with you again, Himanshu.
Yeah. So I think Bharat Hub can be a collaborative platform upon which in digital India can grow, evolve, and innovate. Let's say startup activity is one of the forces driving India's emerging business ecosystems. And I see 5 partners to the Bharat Hub ecosystem. First can be established businesses. Second is, of course, startups. Third can be government. Fourth is venture capital. And fifth is academia. So let's say we talk about established businesses. Established organization can achieve greater agility and improve their customer experience by collaborating with startups, because they have as the processes grow big, they reduce their agility, and if they start collaborating with startup which can help them improve their customers experiences. And we talk about startup by collaborating with established business. A startup can accelerate development of new products, can access to get a new market, and can get access of capital. And the major thing which we lack in startup is the access of skill. So by having a collaboration with a company or a established business, you can have access to skills as well.
Yeah.
Here government can play a major role, because government have a strong interest in supporting emergent Bharat Hub ecosystem, both nationally and regionally, as it will contribute to improved economic growth of the country. Right? So government is doing its bit, and Bharat Net initiative from PM or our government is very, very strong. And we talk about Vani, PM Vani, and Wi-Fi access for the people. I think they are doing pretty good for the economic growth of the country. And fourth part is the venture capitalist, which we are talking about. Startups like us or many other startups need more help in mentoring and guiding, or you can say business modeling or business insight, in addition to the capital infusion from the venture capital. And last but not the least, academia play a major role in encouraging evolution of sustainable and dynamic community. It can build more commercial, usable skills among student population.
No, I
So,
think that's great. Those are great points, Himanshu. Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. Go ahead.
yeah. So a robot startup community not only helps improve the vitality of Indian economy, but provides a gateway to systematic economic transformation.
Yeah.
Benefits to businesses and the Indian population at large are immeasurable. The formation of ecosystem in which established company, startup, venture capitalists, government, uh, center for higher education are able to engage and interact can accelerate and amplify these benefits, enabling India to consolidate its place as a leader in global economy. Right?
Fantastic. Thanks,
I think
Himanshu. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, it's also, as we are thinking about Bharat Hub, right? So to everything that you discussed, if we could create a place where all of these different entities could come in and actually share their experiences with each other, right? That was one of
yeah,
the use cases of the platform that we were thinking about. It's not just about making a connection with like a logo on a website, but there should also be a way or a forum in which you can exchange experiences which might be invaluable. And to your point, startups can find mentors and and so on, right? So it's a community. We can let the community
yeah.
take the hub and take it anywhere. So Colonel Ravi Gupta, let's go to you next. Would love to hear from you.
Okay. Firstly, Himanshu, I will be consuming one of your technologies, so I am very impressed. I got ideas from you, and I'm going to, because this kind of the solution which you have will be consumed by us, because many of the business houses have come to us to actually transcribe their calls and so on. So with their journey towards AI and ML. So please take me as your customer. Secondly, you see, like we mentioned that our Bharat is no more the old Bharat. It's a new emerging Bharat with the governments pumping in money towards the infrastructure, physical or IT. Now, there is a Corona also has given a big disruption to all of us in terms of the way we work and the way we can actually work. Yeah. So where I'm coming from is that the scaling up will happen by tapping this technology, and there is tremendous amount of population sitting in villages to be employed. For example, the women cannot come to cities, though they are MA, BCom, MScs. They can't come to cities because our traditions don't allow them, and we are employing them in certain processes which are work from home. What is the idea of generating these things? Basically, our Bharat has become aspirational. Not only they want to earn more money, they also want to spend that money for getting some aspirational things right on themselves. So one thing is, there is a huge population which is sitting there to be employed. Many people who were employed in tier 1, tier 2 cities have gone back to the tier 4, their villages. Trust me, they're coming back to us. They're saying, if the work is available in my neighborhood, why should I go to a tier 1? So therefore, that change has taken place. Second thing which I'm looking at is, the changes which are happening when I move around in the rural areas, see a farmer working today. Those days are gone when it used to be, one crop. People are doing small, within the land holding they have. They are doing poly houses, they are doing drip irrigation, and they are doing various types of crops. In Punjab itself, you find dragon fruit being grown, by the way. Yeah. And dragon fruit is so expensive. Today, 100 rupees or 120 rupees has come down to 60 bucks now. I'm just telling you, because that's the kind of a work which is happening, and that's where the technology, whether in the farming, agri industry, will take it there. Another aspect, third aspect, which I'll tell is the major companies like e-commerce and HUL. I mean, with your Chopals and with your setup there, you have covered the last mile, creating employment for the women there. And we are, we do training for the HUL women folks. So I know how it's happening. On Amazon, Flipkart, they're onboarding sellers from these places so that they can sell their goodies from, let's say, somebody from Kashmir is selling saffron, somebody from Northeast selling, something which is typical of that, bamboo products, somebody from, Mandya selling their toys. These people are coming on board. Another thing is, uh, big companies are also, because these people have become aspirational, they are actually onboarding mom and pop stores to become as affiliates where people can go and place demands on Amazon, get their products delivered, and so on. All of that is happening, and not to miss the government policies like JAM you mentioned, and also the METI, initiatives which are thrown in. The tremendous push which is happening. I think scale is already on the go. It's just that we have to give more push. Trust me, when I go to CXOs and they listen to us, the first thing is, please go ahead, do it for us. Not only for the cost arbitrage which we provide them, the kind of retention we provide, but they say that we must, we can get a better job done through these people because there is hardly any difference in the delivery as such.
Yep.
Trust me, technology is enabling. People are adopting, adapting, and also delivering.
That's great, Colonel Gupta. So I think, the couple of big takeaways I took from your advice to us as we build and develop Bharat Hub is you're going to have consumers or users even from rural Bharat, like farmers, who may want to use technologies and startups that are available for example, for agri-tech. So when we think about this, we have to be very holistic and make sure we get all consumers or all, suppliers, and including people with skills. So let me move over to Anish, and I'm going to, Anish, also ask you, because you're a big player, right? You obviously work with multiple other enterprises and platform players. So what's your view as we think about, Bharat Hub? Is it just one more community? How do you make it successful? How do we differentiate ourselves?
No, wait. I think for me, it's coming from a bit of an experience and bias. See, a lot of solutions today are focused at urban, if not the urban elite. And I think that's where a lot of investment, VC money, a lot of mind space, a lot of media coverage goes. And I think that's fine. It has its place. It's extremely useful. But I think for the context of Bharat, we haven't seen enough of a horizontal platform play or an ecosystem play. And that's definitely a gap. So when you talk about Bharat Hub, Sunil, what comes to my mind clearly are three things. See, first and foremost is discovery. See, the information sharing about here is a need, an organization like ours who has a particular problem, and here is a set of new evolving solutions.
Yeah.
Just discovery and connecting them to is extremely valuable. I think for that reason alone, I think the Bharat Hub can be significantly an accelerator to this whole ecosystem. But I also see it in a couple of other ways, and as we've been discussing, they're emerging in my mind. I think number two, sometimes as we see the ecosystem evolving, and they're evolving so fast, learning about, like Colonel Ravi was talking about, how in certain parts of Bharat, they're growing many crops, they're doing affiliates. Now that itself will lead to more ideas. Then you can say, okay, if they are doing this, can I join hands with them and amplify that if I'm not doing anything on my own?
Yeah.
So again, new ideas in these conversations can come in. And third, I think today we lack a platform where one can have an open-ended conversation saying, I have this problem and how do you solve it? For example, in closer to home, we do a lot of work in water conservation. We have a Hindustan Unilever Foundation does it. We don't talk about it much. So if you were to think about me and I talk about my core business, that opportunity of collaboration or that opportunity of making that unlock, both for the community, for the service provider, for the end company, will never happen. So I'm very convinced we need this just for the first reason. But the second and third can absolutely be bigger unlocks as we go along.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's great. So, folks, I'm just going to be sensitive to time a little. We just have a little over a minute left, and I see there's a bunch of questions. So I know we may not get a chance to answer all of these questions, but a couple of these that seem to come out is, how can we get engaged to find what these opportunities are, from Bharat? I think, I'll take a crack at that. I think that's what Bharat Hub was really intending to be. So if you have a solution in mind, or you have some technologies or opportunities, that would be the place where you would actually put out and say and advertise, what you do. One of our thoughts always was, it's not a place where we want to be a commercial entity like a marketplace, but maybe we start with, you can provide what you might do, and maybe a link, to some free source code, elsewhere in a platform of your choice, which would help you get connected, to an interested party. there's another question in here around what are some consumption trends. I think maybe, Anish, you could answer that, that you see across Bharat. If there's any insight you want to provide, to the question.
No, I can just give from a consumer goods perspective. All of us know COVID and the pandemic has created shifts. And I think the overall, we are in the very core category, what we call essentials in a large base. So we've seen a little bit of a shift, for example, out of home, ice creams, for very nature, people are not stepping out, is a little bit soft, but equally in home, people are doing a lot more cooking, that has gone up. We see, to Colonel Ravi's insight, shifts have happened from the cities to rural areas. We haven't seen a lot of it come back yet. And that shift is also what we are saying. So it's a mixed bag. It's an interesting year, if I must say, 2020, but 2021 looks better.
All right, wonderful. So we're out of time. So I'm just going to close with two, asks here, right? I think one is call to action. I think the time is now. And what we are talking about here is a community, and a community cannot be done without participants. So we're a growing community. We grow after every one of these conferences. Our community gets bigger. I think for this particular track, we're also at a point where it's time for us to build something, whether it's a website or enhance one of, the NASSCOM websites out there or one of the community, sites, and we can create a little, forum over there to just start. Another idea, we had was, why don't we collect, a lot of the emerging startups, and, Himanshu, you're proud winner of the Emerge 50 at NASSCOM. Startups like yourselves or other startups that aspire to get known, we can create all of these. You can create a community, a directory of these, startups out there. And Colonel Gupta, I think companies like yours, if you all can help even shape the thinking on Bharat, we would welcome volunteers, from your organization. So two calls to action. One, get us more people in the community who can contribute and shape the thinking. And then we need doers as well. So for those in the audience, who have a passion about this, have some skills, join us. We're different from everyone else in that, it's community based. It's all volunteer driven. So with that, I'm just going to express my gratitude to all three of you. And it was a great chat. I'm sure the audience, learned a lot from your insights, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you so much.